We are
We're
having
starting.
some difficulty getting sufficient hearing devices that will function, and I just was going to say to you, if you can use your over-the-ear thing, the transmission of sound is much better than that. So I just give you a heads
okay.
up.
Thank you. Okay, I got you. Thank you. We're starting.
You are?
Yes. So we have a song to start out on, Love Will Guide Us. Take it away, Marcy. Rise up as you're willing and able. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the night. Sing what angels, if you can, sweet roses, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with love. Love will guide us, peace has guide us, hope inside us, will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Please be seated. We have a welcome from afar. This is Linda Underwood, I hope, and she has sent this from Cape Cod, meaning that you do not have to be in this room to participate. Let's see if that will work this week.
Good morning. Good morning to those of you in the sanctuary this morning, and good morning to those joining via the miracle of technology. I am Linda Underwood, and I join you this morning from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I am grateful for the work that enables so many of us who are far away to join in on Sunday mornings. Welcome to church this morning, no matter where you are this morning. The Unitarian Universalist congregation of Venice strives to be a beacon of liberal religion for Florida's Suncoast and a refuge for all who seek a welcoming community, no matter your color, creed, ability, or class. No matter who you love, your gender expression, political affiliation, or religious belief. Here we celebrate our differences as we learn from one another. If you'd like to know more about this congregation and its many opportunities for learning, growth, and connection, you can peruse our calendar and announcements on Facebook or on our website at ucov.org. If you're watching this on YouTube, please remember to like this video by hitting the thumbs up icon below. Leave us a note in the comment section and click the subscribe button on your YouTube channel. Makes it easier to find us next Sunday. And if you're going to our website at ucov.org, please consider clicking the donate button and giving as generously as you can. And if you're participating in the sanctuary this morning, please remember our donation boxes as you leave. We hope you'll find something interesting, inspiring in this service that speaks to you and maybe lifts you up or challenges you in ways that lead to spiritual reflection and personal growth. We're glad that you've chosen to join us. Sit back no matter where you are, and welcome to church this morning. The prelude begins our worship.
A few announcements to run through. If you came to church exclusively this morning to see the fountain, the system says there's a wiring problem, so we'll get to the bottom of that. I don't see anybody leaving quite yet. Adult RE this morning is over in Waters Hall across the driveway after this service. The meditation center on Shamrock had a problem in the storm and their roof collapsed into their meeting space. They're now using this space on Saturday mornings at 10:30. This is Marcy Leonard's, I don't know which microphone I'm coming through on, but we'll see what's going on with the AV system. This is Marcy Leonard's last Sunday with us as music director.
Nope, turn it back on.
How's that? Whoa! That's hot. Marcy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this is during this period. It is your last Sunday with us as music director. Next week, Marianne Kerner will be here. Marcy has a set of family issues to go deal with in the north. And we very much appreciate you having fulfilled the job you have done. And please look for news about November, because in November the choir will be reforming and Marcy Leonard will be our choir director in November. So thank you, Marcy. Last week I neglected to mention a special offering, and this week I will mention it. So this week is a special offering rather than last week. Good Samaritan Pharmacy and Health Services provides medical services to uninsured, financially strapped members of our community. Over 30% of Sarasota County families have income at levels that mean that one medical crisis could be utterly devastating. Good Samaritan provides free access to prescription and over-the-counter medications, as well as access to online physician services and diagnostic testing. Even during the pandemic, they continue to provide prescription medication and virtual doctor visits to new and pre-existing patients. They're located in Nokomis. Good Samaritan is a nonprofit that's staffed almost entirely by volunteers. We urge you to go to our website, click the donate button there, select special offering, and give as generously as you can. If you are in the sanctuary, there are donation boxes at the doors as you leave. Thank you very much for your gifts today to Good Samaritan Pharmacy and Health Services. And with that, our call to worship is from the Reverend Lisa Friedman. We live in a fragmented world that tempts us to despair. We would put it back, piece by piece, if it were ours to choose. But sometimes the fragments are enough. In a world of cruelty, there is still power in every act of kindness. In a time of doubt, there is still power in every act of hope. In an age of division, there is still power in every act of unity. We must remember that sometimes the fragments of meaning we make are just the right size to hold in our hands. Our children have their own religious education class by Zoom each Sunday at 10 a.m. If you'd like to attend or help your child attend, login information can be found on our website or on our Facebook page. This week we have a video that the kids have used in their class. It's called The Reflection in Me. It's from Mark Colagiovanni. Mark Colagiovanni.
I like being you, said the reflection in the mirror. To me, you are perfectly perfect. I blushed. Me? Yes, you. And by the way, you have wonderful eyes. I blinked, astonished. I do? Absolutely. They sparkle like stars on the darkest of nights. I gazed downward. Thank you. Your eyes sparkle too. Sweet of you to say. You have a marvelous voice. I gently whispered, You really think so? Of course. You sound as joyous as a songbird, whistling in the trees. And you have a magnificent smile. I sheepishly grinned. Well, Mama always says, start every day with a smile. I agree. Your smile is as bright and cheerful as the sun in the sky. And you are quite smart. I took a step towards the mirror. I do try very hard. You sure do. You're as brilliant as a rocket scientist. I like that you are friendly. I leaned in closer. It's very important to be nice, you know. It sure is. You're as peaceful as a butterfly. And you have a lot of courage. I raised my head high. I auditioned for the school play today. Outstanding. You're as brave as a lion. You're a fantastic dancer. I spread my arms wide. Watch how fast they can twirl. Around and around I went. Amazing. You're as graceful as a dolphin gliding through the sea. I plopped on the ground, giggling as the room playfully spun around. And you have a terrific laugh. Thank you very much. Your chuckle fills the air with bubbly joy. But most of all, I like your heart. Your kindness is as beautiful as a rainbow. I stood up and walked towards the mirror. To me, you are perfectly perfect. I gently pressed my hands against the glass. I like being you. We smiled in unison. I like being you too. I want to be you forever.
So I don't know how this mic is working, if it is at all, or whether that one's better. We shall see. If you've brought any celebrations with you to church this morning, I will bring you the microphone and let you share briefly and personally and nonpartisanly.
Do I get to hold it? No.
No. Oh, we still have cooties. We still have cooties, so I'll hold on to it.
All right. I only wanted to say that if you want to start bringing foods and put in the little wheelbarrow, I will gather them up and take them either on Monday morning or Tuesday morning over to the food bank. So please feel free to bring things once again, okay?
Okay. That is a little bitty wheelbarrow that's brightly painted out there.
Yeah, and I'll bring it to the forefront so everybody can.
Okay, and it has sometimes gotten back in the corner, but we pledged to put it out central. So bring canned goods and food, and what else? Canned goods?
Anything
I've
that's
seen-
not perishable. Actually, they take perishable things like, I was bringing, of course, mangoes.
Yeah, you would bring mangoes.
I would.
Anything. I've seen lots of things that dog and cat food, even pet food.
Okay.
So. Okay. Other celebrations. If you've brought any sorrows with you to church this morning, I will bring you the microphone, let you share briefly.
Well, my sorrow is that my car lost its accumulator. I don't know what that is, but it cost me $3,000.
Oh, my God.
That's right.
Other sorrows. Sorrows? Try not to be pushy.
Hi, everyone.
I'll hold it.
Oh, okay.
That's all right.
My name is Claire. I've never been here before. I came here through Marianne, and I'm actually really happy to be here. My sorrow is that my sister was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer last week, and my mom died of the same thing a few years ago. And my sister goes to church up in New York, and she's a legal aid lawyer, and she's done a lot of good, and through her church up there, they've helped a lot of families, especially a lot of African families who arrived in this country without jobs and homes. And so I'm just so delighted to be with you right now. I feel so supported just being in this chair with people who I think I sense really care. So somehow or another, I've just ended up in this chair sharing this sorrow and also feeling very happy to be in your presence. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Did I see another hand? Richard? I'll hold.
I'm sad to say that my roof is very sick and it's going into hospice, and I need to replace it. I'm lucky to be able to do it, but gosh, they cost a lot of money. Thanks.
Can I backtrack and do a celebration?
Certainly.
I brought a friend today with me, Nancy Brown, and her daughter, Catherine, is moving from Seattle to take a job with Boat Marine. And we're celebrating that. She'll be here in a few days just to start a new job. So, thank you.
Good. Welcome. Anything else? May the gratitude and celebrations among us this day become a blessing to us all, and may the concerns and sorrows of each be carried in all our hearts, a burden shared become a load lightened. Our meditation begins today with words from the Reverend Sam Trumbore, who was recently elected to the board of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Reverend Sam writes, "Great Spirit of life, great Spirit of love, teach my heart healing words. Show me the words that help rather than harm. Instruct me in the verbs that bring energy, the nouns that point to the real, the adjectives that describe your subtleties. Reveal to me how words can be offered in a way that connect rather than separates, that develops trust and eschews suspicion, that opens the heart and relaxes the mind." We lift up those in this community who face change, challenge, or loss today as we hold within our hearts all who suffer. Now we pray each in our own ways into the silence. The hopes of this community are offered forth in the names of all those who've gone before and in the names of all those who will come after. In the names of all the helpers of humankind. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. Our interlude is an excerpt from a show called Vocabularies. It's a solo performance, this at the Teatro Cervantes in Malaga. It's by jazz artist Bobby McFerrin. What an instrument. So here's a poem by Grace Paley. You can't think without thinking about something. My friends who are Buddhists are sometimes thinking weeks on end about how to think about nothing. We're busy. It's all right. We'll begin again. My friends who are Buddhists are sometimes thinking weeks on end about how to think about nothing. They are often successful. Sometimes, looking at that famous sculpture or a picture of it, I think, oh, he is surely not thinking about anything. He only wants to give the appearance to passersby for some reason. Or he needs to hold his heavy head in his hands, which will allow thoughts or ideas into his stoniness. Just as I, putting my pen to paper, am pretty sure that something which has pressed upon my breath beyond bearing will appear in words, take shape, and singing, let me go on with my life. So when Ms. Paley mentions that famous sculpture, of course my first thought was that she must mean Auguste Rodin's The Thinker. Seems like kind of a no-brainer. But then once I thought of it, I wondered how that happens. How would a person I've never met, from a place I don't know, in a poem without the usual niceties of punctuation or capitals, lead me with three little words to conjure out of the countless images I carry in my head that one iconic fellow with his chin in his hand? But when I read her words, I can do nothing else. It's not even conscious. It just seems like I thought about it without thinking. I've never been to the Rodin Museum, but they tell me it's great. When I do get to go, I'll likely learn that the piece we've come to know as The Thinker is a small part of a never-used larger work commissioned in 1880 depicting Dante's 9 Circles of Hell. The museum that planned to use the larger work over its doorway was never built, but the little centerpiece of that naked, muscular, seated man contemplating something became a work all on its own, with the first of 28 full-scale bronze castings of what Rodin called the poet, back then, appearing in 1904. One appeared in Paris and another at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. It was not well regarded in its day because, as it turns out, it was too forward-thinking. It used old classical forms in a newly naturalistic, almost modern fashion. and would only later be seen for what it was, a bridge between one period of artistic expression and another. Few noticed at the time. Rodin did okay during his lifetime, but there was no indication that his work would ever become the cultural signpost that it is for many of us today. So why would Grace Paley choose such an image for her poem then? She seems a little cynical, doesn't she? She says she sometimes thinks he's not thinking anything at all. He only wants people to think he's thinking. Now, whether this is simple projection on Paley's part or a clue to a larger cultural morass is hard to say. Possibly it's both. Paley may have felt undervalued as a thinker, although she was well known as a pacifist, a peace activist, women's rights advocate. She taught at Sarah Lawrence. She published poetry and short stories. She was the first officially appointed New York State writer. She was poet laureate of Vermont in her last years. If she needed more evidence of her ability to think than that, that's sad. I suppose many of us don't see ourselves very clearly. Perhaps, though, she's pointing here to something larger. Maybe she knows of something nearly universal in the human psyche, that many of us do harbor a suspicion that our thinking is not up to par, that if others only knew how little we were thinking or what we were thinking about, we would surely be the butt of jokes or driven out of society, maybe even burned at the stake. But maybe, she says, maybe it's not as bad as all that for this motionless guy. Maybe this thinker just needs to hold his heavy hand, his head in his hand so that something will drift into that rock-hard noggin of his. We can see that whether it's full of thoughts or not. His head is heavy. So heavy he's staring downward, not upwards as if he's talking to that old white guy in the sky, nor straight out level as if he were looking for answers from his fellows. No, he's looking down at the earth. In fact, he appears to be, if not exactly flattened and prostrate, then at least he's heavily earthbound. He's seemingly held captive and immovable on this little piece of ground on which he sits. But then by contrast, notice his feet. His feet are at an angle to the horizontal. His toes are gripping the turf in league with the taut muscles of his legs. His lower body ready to explode, ready to spring the man free and lift the whole of his being upward into the atmosphere, not by using his thoughts, which, rather than being the vehicle of his release, seem to actually be the weight that holds him pinned to the ground. It is not his head that will set him free. It is the rest of his body that is on the verge of becoming a springboard that will become the real means of his freedom. That may be an important perspective for us frozen chosen types to consider. It is not your thoughts that are the source of your salvation, but your actions. I don't mean that if your feet are no longer quite able to propel you skyward, you're sunk. I don't mean that. Remember being invited to rise up in body and or spirit, to sing hymns, That's what I'm talking about. Rising up in spirit no matter what our bodies are doing. Staying stuck in your head is not the best recipe for rising up and finding freedom from your burdens. Paley's Buddhist friends are looking for freedom too. She says they want to think about nothing and are often successful. Which I had to stop and think, did she mean that as a compliment? That they had done something they set out to do? Or did she mean it as something of a demeaning little crack? Her Buddhist friends are people who don't think, can't think, aren't as smart as her, aren't as valuable. Again, she points at the cultural here, I think. And maybe I'm projecting, but I think most of us spend some time each day judging those around us, deciding whether we're better than they are because of some personal trait or some resource that we have more of than they might. They don't think like I do, so they're not as smart as I am. They don't have as much as I do. Therefore, I will look down on them. Or worse. But maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am. Maybe instead of demeaning her Buddhist friends, Paley is actually holding their spiritual practices up to a higher light. Maybe she knows the Four Noble Truths, the nature of suffering, the origin of suffering, the end of suffering, the pathway leading to the end of suffering. The first noble truth is that birth, illness, aging, death are all suffering. Being separated from what you love is suffering. Clinging to anything is suffering. The second noble truth is the origin of suffering. Craving for delight, for sensual pleasure, even for existence. Any attachment to one's cravings involves suffering. The third noble truth is the end of suffering. It's the letting go of craving, the gaining freedom from attachments, and a release from your reliance on them. And the fourth noble truth, the pathway to the end of suffering, is called the Noble Eightfold Path. It involves right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. The Noble Eightfold Path is noble truth number 4. That's certainly one way to handle the chaos of living. You parse it out and number it and give it structure so that it can be thought about rather than simply felt. Feeling can be not much fun. So in order to think about suffering, we impose order where there may be none, because chaos is just too hard to get a grip on. Our brains don't work that way. It's kind of like the 12 steps of AA. We, not only alcoholics, but all of us to some extent, we need order to keep us from the abyss of chaos. Ordering and numbering the 12 steps of recovery is essential for those who suffer the chaos of addiction where there is no order except the acquisition of the next hit. I've seen plenty of 12-step newbies come into the program and begin to work through the steps. Especially in the beginning, they need to know exactly where they are on that ladder. Oh, I'm on my 4th step. I've been there for a month, and I'm going to get there. I'm going to get it soon. Only later, after they've worked through the rest of the steps, each step in its turn, and no matter how long it takes, only much later will it dawn on them that they can be at any given moment on any of the steps. They will likely need, in fact, as time goes on, to move up and down, back and forth through many of the steps over and over again every day. But in the beginning, that much chaos is too daunting. There's a need to be as orderly as possible just to maintain some stability and some balance so you can begin to end the suffering. If Buddhists apply the order of the Four Noble Truths onto the problem of suffering, Dante applied the order of 9 circles of hell onto the problem of suffering. Grace Paley applies the order of poetry onto the problem of suffering. For her, it's not just therapy. For her, it is an action that is the vehicle of her release, her real means of freedom. She says in this poem, something has pressed upon something has pressed upon my breath beyond bearing. Oh my goodness. After all we've been through, can you not feel that? Because man, I can. For me, it comes from the memory of things I've said or done, of things I've left unsaid or undone, from the ways I've been hurtful to others. It comes from my awareness of gross injustices in the world. It comes from an overwhelming sense of loss and grief, my own and others. There seems no end to these things that are intractable, these things that are so dreadful I can often not put them into words. Paley says that whenever she feels this burden, her solution is to put pen to paper and allow that stuff, that unspeakable and inarticulate chaos, to appear in words which it hadn't before. She allows it somehow to flow down her arm and out through her hand and fingers and pen to be formed and ordered and structured by the rules of language and committed to paper, written out, becoming a concrete thing that is, importantly, apart from her. It's rather than an amorphous something holding her down and keeping her from breathing and stopping her from going on in her life. It's now out there. Her suffering is then no longer integral to her life. It's now separate and apart. It's still there, but she's no longer at one with it. But as long as she's thinking, as long as she's attached to her cravings, she suffers. She's in hell. The way she's found, the way she can get on with her life, is through putting pen to paper. Then she can lift her heavy head from her hand, rise all the way up, look out ahead, and travel on a little while longer. Now, far be it from me to perpetuate the old hierarchies, especially that old cosmology from Dante's time that posited a heaven up above and a hell down below. Not many of us would say that we believe in either heaven or hell, at least in a physical sense. But those directions are still embedded in our psyches. He's got his head in the clouds, means he's not in touch with reality. She's down in the dumps, means she's having a bad day. I am not so interested in experiencing hell anymore than I have already. I don't want to remain pinned to the ground like the thinker. As much as I love this plane of existence, I also wouldn't mind connecting with that other direction. I want to lift my head and open myself up from time to time to the infinite sky, to feel some connection to all that is beyond me, which is, using the word from the old cosmology, heaven. I would have gotten none of that from this poem of Paley's, except for one word, one tiny little pointer that offers redemption for all that came before. Just as I was putting my pen to paper, am pretty sure that something which has pressed upon my breath beyond bearing will appear in words, take shape, and singing, let me go on with my life. Singing. We might ask, is it the words that have taken shape and are singing, or is it Paley that is singing as she goes on with her life? Actually, I think it's us. With all the weight of this poem, with all our thinking about thinking or not thinking, with all the contemplation of the many depths of hell, with all the unbearable somethings pressing upon our breath, in the end, we lift our voices and sing. Because we can. Just because we can. This is our last Sunday with Marcy as music director and as pianist. She'll be back in a few months to lead the choir in more singing. This is our last chance to sing with her at the piano. So I would invite you, whether you remain seated or leaned over or laying flat out, to rise up in body and or spirit and join in singing that great old hymn, that gospel hymn, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. I invite you to rise up as you're willing and able. Our benediction comes from the same words as our call to worship by the Reverend Lisa Friedman. In a world of cruelty, there is still power in every act of kindness. In a time of doubt, there is still power in every act of hope. In an age of division, there is still power in every act of unity. We must remember that sometimes the fragments of meaning we make are just the right size to hold in our hands. Go in peace, walk softly on your paths, and may the light of love shine on you all your days. Please be seated for a postlude.